Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Smothered Post-Session Podcast. I'm Lawson. Joining me, as always, is Seth Thompson, our director. And welcome to episode 11.
Is that one twice?
What? Are you claiming that
Oh my
it's
goodness.
so good that it's number one twice?
It is number one twice.
In
That's
the
what I've heard.
awards of my heart?
That's what I've heard.
That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, we have a new face, a new voice for you folks today. Please welcome Reiner, who's playing Gregory Jakowski in Smothered. Very excited to get into the nitty-gritty about your reflections upon our sessions together and everything like that. First and foremost, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing just fine, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're doing pretty well.
Doing awesome.
How's everything during the apocalypse light that is the coronavirus and everything that comes with it?
It's been fine. It's just getting used to what you can and can't do.
Right.
But I've been keeping pretty busy working on different projects, so it's actually been okay.
Fantastic. Any creative projects?
I published a novel last year in November.
Oh, wow.
I'm working on a new one. I'm going to do a video project for the Frederick County Landmarks Foundation. I wrote a character, actually a historical character who moved from Germany to Frederick in the 1800s and built a farm there. And so I'm going to play this character. It's a script I wrote.
Ooh, that's
in the
awesome.
summer.
Wow. That's incredible. What's tell the audience a little bit about this book that you published recently.
The book is called Captives. It's a project I've been working on for a long time. I wrote a screenplay between 2006 and 2008. It got optioned but didn't get made. And in 2015, we tried to raise money. Nothing happened. So I finally decided I was going to write it as a novel. And then in 2018, I was very fortunate to find a traditional publisher, and they published it last November. So,
Well, congratulations on that.
thank you.
It's
very
called
exciting.
Captives, yes?
Captives, yes. It's a World War II story set in the historical POW camp in Frederick during the war.
Wow. So everyone who's listening and watching, if you've got a book idea that you're looking for, well, there you go. Go check that out. I'm not used to being seen on the second camera. This is typically not something that's going on. We got a little bit of a different setup, if that wasn't obvious.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I'm liking it.
So Reiner, of course, is staying safe during the coronavirus. So hence why his face is currently superimposed on this laptop screen right here. And so, Reiner, talk to us a little bit about your thoughts with this series and this character. What are some things people are going to expect from this character? What are some things that you, just kind of riff a little bit about the character for us? Of course, without giving too much away. But
I was just going to say, I don't want to give you any
spoiler free.
Spoiler. Oh, wow. A spoiler free is going to be a tough one. The series drew me in very quickly. It's a well-written, very character, psychologically driven story. To me, it sort of explores the humanity of people in this job, police staff who are trying to enforce the law while trying to maintain their humanity. So that was a great sort of approach to a genre that's been around for a long time and where we sort of the same things over and over again. And this was different, so I was excited about that. The other thing that drew me in right away was that you guys cast me as Gregory. I've played a lot of villains in the 25 years almost that I've been acting. And I try not to approach them as villains, which is part of the work and the challenge here.
Of course.
But he was a character who was very different from most characters that I've played.
Outside of your wheelhouse a little bit. Well, that's exciting.
And that was very exciting for me. The other thing, in the first recording we did, it's a really, really long monologue. And that's always a challenge for me as an actor. I kind of like the interaction with other actors, whether on stage or in front of a camera.
Sure.
Somebody, a character that talks to me and I listen and then I respond, hopefully honestly. And that's sort of a natural thing for me. To just talk by myself for a long time is always difficult because I want to make sure I do it in a way that's compelling,
Right.
and that's going to maintain the audience's attention.
It's a little uncomfortable, right? When this is you, and especially with how we did it, because for this particular monologue, it's a recording. It's a recording within a recording. But it's a recorded material. So we had him on the phone. And so, I mean, I don't know. I think there were a few times where you might have been pacing around, but it was just you and the phone, and we were silent on the other side. So that can definitely be a little bit, that puts you in a vulnerable place, right? Where you're reciting all of these words, and it's just, all right, I'm going to keep going because we have to be quiet.
Yeah.
You guys really helped a lot in a sense of, first of all, breaking it down the first few go rounds and sort of looking at one piece at a time. And sort of giving the idea specifically how to maybe approach it differently. Because in the preparatory work that I had done, I sort of had a specific idea what I was trying to sort of express in each moment. But the fact that you guys gave me alternatives and other possibilities also helped me to sort of add some depth to that character and explore choices that had not been obvious to me before, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And speaking of depth for the character, that's actually the big reason, at least for me, when we were casting this entire project and we had you read, that was really the big reason that my vote was for you, for sure. I was just like, I think we need to get Reiner for this, because here's the thing. So when I read that character, I wasn't thinking I was thinking of a different sounding voice. Let's put it that way. I was thinking of a more gruff, more surly voice, but when we heard you go, it gave it a whole new level for the character. It wasn't, yes, the character is an antagonist.
Of course.
Yeah, he is an antagonist, but what was fun because you, Reiner, have you have a kind voice, a kind sounding voice.
There's warmth to it.
Warmth is a good word. And that's what I thought was so fun about having you do the character, because it was going to bring a whole different level and let the audience really decide kind of, is he genuine? Is he not? We kind of, I think it's pretty obvious sometimes that he might not be. But
right, yeah.
But there's still some heart there to the character. I knew you'd bring a certain amount of depth to it and wouldn't want to come at it as just, I'm a villain.
Yeah, one of the things that has been a point of topic about this, about just this entire series, has been about moral gray area and everything like that. And the most compelling antagonist, a formal antagonist in a story, they typically don't see themselves as an antagonist. They themselves don't feel as though they are wrong. So it's all about, and I personally think that you did a fantastic job finding moments to just give say a few things, or just give a few choices where people could, I'm not going to say, well, hopefully not relate too much, but they'd at least go, well, I understand where you're coming from.
He gives
it's like, I don't agree. It's like, but I understand, sort of, and everybody will be different as they interpret it.
Yeah. He gives a little more heart to the character than I think a lot of actors would have, is the reason I knew he was the right choice.
Yeah, that's for sure. I can safely say that out of everybody who auditioned for this, Reiner here was by far the most surprising to me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, he started reading the character, and it was just kind of one of those light bulbs, and thought, oh, wow. It's something that you don't really expect, because when writing the character at first, it's like, this is the job of this character for the story overall, and so I'm glad to hear and to see that the fact that text gave you enough leeway to kind of find those moments to bring a little bit more humanity to this character, that it's not just I'm a scumbag or something like that.
In my writing and in my acting for my characters, I always create very detailed, in-depth backstories, and taking that sort of away from me, especially as a performer, to make sure that whatever I say and do, that there's a history that informs that it's not just coming out of nowhere, that I'm just saying, well, this guy is a jerk and now I'm going to act like a jerk. That tends, for me as an actor, that tends not to resonate very much as an honest performance. It's more like, it's almost like a caricature. And I did not come across as a caricature. I wanted to come across as an honest human being. When we did the recording session in the studio, again, you guys gave me different possibilities when Seth would say, okay, now I want you to say this 3 different ways. So again, it was great to play around with it and do something that was totally different from what I originally imagined. But again, at least we have all these different choices to use in the final edit. To
play around with, to figure out exactly which one works the best to help push the storyline. Yes, that's
right.
The beauty of this format is that, and then it also gives you and every other actor for this more time to play, which is so important. Yeah. More time to play with the delivery, more time to play with how the character presents themselves, etc. So, did it come to a surprise to you when we cast you as this? I'm curious, because it's a typically kind of out of your wheelhouse, or what you seem to fall into a lot.
I was a little surprised because I was like, okay, wow, they see me as that character. No, I was kind of flattered too, because sometimes I see actors being pushed into a niche. I'm talking about people in film and television, sort of playing the same characters over and over.
Typecasting all the time.
And yeah, it's work and it's a steady paycheck, and that's cool. But from an artistic perspective, I always want to be challenged with every new project. I want to continue growing as an actor, and getting roles like this where I really have to stretch myself and really have to do the work to be able to give an honest performance. That's always something that I welcome. So when you guys cast me as Gregory, I was like, yes.
A new opportunity,
It scared me because I was like, I want to do a really great job. So there's, the challenge that kind of freaks you out. But at the same time, it was something I looked forward to and something that I wanted to work on. So thank you for seeing that possibility.
Yeah, it is our pleasure.
That's the reason, once again, that's the reason I wanted you, is because you are so opposite of this character that's why I think the light bulb went off. And me and Lawson both looked at each other and were like, he'd be really cool as Gregor, because it's such a curveball. Like, it really, in my opinion, I thought it was, because once again, we could have gone very, very stereotypical with this character. And I think, the casting of you and then your work that you did with it took that stereotype completely away, which is what I wanted.
Right. And, maybe one could look at it as it's taking away, it's adding a level of complexity that some listeners might be discouraged about. I mean, you mentioned film and everything like that. Film, especially the film industry, has a tendency to kind of bring out some of those caricatures because it's an industry, and so these stories, people have to fit certain molds and everything like that. And sometimes those villains become those twisting of the mustache kind of villains because they have to do it. And maybe from a global marketing standpoint, it's not the best idea, but for myself personally, as the person who wrote this thing and everything like that, I want that. I would every time pick the humanity, the thing. I would rather write characters that actors can go in and actually bring to life, so people listen and go, that sounds like a real person, not just that sounds like a villain.
That sounds like every other character I've ever seen.
That sounds like the hero.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I can figure it out in the first couple of lines or something like that.
And that's what was so fun about his performance, was that it's not that at all. You don't get that like, oh yeah, I've heard this, but you know what I mean? You don't get that at all with him.
Not at all. It's definitely something that gives a chance to and I feel like I feel as though some people will definitely hear it at first and go, oh, okay. They won't, because like you're saying, if it's somebody who's going into it and they're immediately going to become that grizzled, that just really, really low, rough kind of voice, is like, oh well, that's an antagonist, for like when you're first introduced into the story. I think people will be more pulled in just by the fact how all of the context leading up to it, they'll be kind of pulled into it as in who is this, rather than immediately just, it's a villain. That's all it's going to be. So talk a little bit about your character work for this, since this is so much out of your wheelhouse. You did one thing that nobody else did, and I loved it so much, where you sent both Seth and I an email with a picture, and you had a caption to it about the character's father or something like that, which I thought was really cool, kind of you thinking so much about the origin of this character and everything like that. But talk a little bit about your process with this.
What I always do, and again, I use it in my writing and in my acting, and especially in my acting, when I create a character for myself, I have a specific birthday. For this character, I think his home life was really important in making him become the person he turns out to be. So I wanted to make it absolutely clear that there was a lot of dysfunction. The father was a truck driver who drank, who beat him, who beat his wife, who had affairs. The mother was very, very religious. He had a brother who was in and out of prison. And what I do a lot is, I guess I'm a very visual person. I'll pull images from the internet and put those in my bio, because it's when I talk about people, I kind of want to have their image in my head, so that when I talk about them or about them, I have something concrete to connect to, so that I'm not just saying words that I've memorized.
Sure.
So I found a way to sort of show him as he could have maybe turned out a different way, but given what he had to work with, and that he's probably not a particularly bright person, so it was not like he was going to go off to college and become a rocket scientist. He sort of did the best he could, but then that always ended up being the wrong thing. And I think my character really sees himself as a victim, in the sense that he thinks he's always tried to do the right thing, but whenever he did, he would just get beaten down, or and that it was always someone else's fault. And I think, in this story, that's sort of the major premise in much of what he says. It's her fault. Being
misunderstood and deflecting whenever.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a few characteristics I think that could be tied into that character for sure. So how do you feel now that, because for you, we've gotten everything. We've gotten everything for this character. So versus preparing and being on the other side, how do you feel about not only this process in particular, but about the character and about the performance? Do you feel as though you discovered new things while going through your recording sessions?
Well, definitely. You guys sort of guided me through the process of discovering alternatives to the choices that I made the first time around. And again, I'm really excited now and looking forward to hearing the final product, to see what you decided to use for each moment. Because again, it could go into so many different directions. I mean, I remember saying lines in a very sympathetic way, and then I said the same line in a very cold and in a very unfeeling and very selfish way.
Yeah.
So I think it could just go into so many different directions, and I'm looking forward to finding out what you ended up using in the final edit of the piece.
Us too.
We're looking forward to that as well.
Us too.
We have to make those decisions still.
That's been the constant sidebar between Seth and I. It's like, we can't wait to do that, which we're going to be doing that after this.
It starts tonight.
At least for the main series, we're finished. We're finished recording. Where's some wood? Is this real?
Nope.
That might be vinyl.
That is not real. Let's pretend it was.
Let's pretend it was. I did it while my fingers were crossed. Totally. Yeah, that's how we felt this entire time. So actually, that's a great segue into the question that I've been just asking everybody, for those who, especially the first time when it comes to being on here, why should people listen to this?
Well, again, as I said in the beginning, it's a detective slash murder mystery that approaches that genre in a new way. In that it's more character driven and more humanity driven than just, okay, we're going to figure out who did what and then convict this person. And again, with a person who is the prime suspect and the detective sort of feeling a level of sympathy for him, I think changes the dynamics in a really interesting way. So I think the audience will feel that this is an exciting and a sophisticated story, but as we're listening to it, we're sort of figuring out who we can relate to and how we feel about this person, and whether we would approach their decisions the same way or if we would do it differently, and also gradually discovering their humanity as we're listening to the story, and sort of seeing their journey through the story and where they begin and where they end up. I think it's going to be a very entertaining as well as thought-provoking process. Because yes, it's entertaining, but I think it goes beyond that. I think it's definitely a thinking person's kind of crime story.
Okay. I mean,
That's
all those things, all those things are things that I definitely am hoping for. I think we're all definitely hoping for. So thank you so much for that honest answer, for sure. Do you have a thought?
Yes, I'd like to get into a little something with Reiner here, just because he does have a very intensive background in the acting and film and theater world and all that. And as actually we were talking about it a little bit right before this podcast, Reiner, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the work you've done? I mean, one of the most notable things that I saw anyway, that I was like, oh man, that's cool, was on your page, your actor page, it says that you were in Night at the Museum 2. That's pretty sweet. How was that? Cool.
That was a lot of fun. So I ended up playing one of the Streltsys, who were the 6 medieval Russian soldiers. And you couldn't tell us apart because we were in this full uniform thing with visors and everything. It was a great experience. We were filming the outdoor scenes. The majority of the film was filmed in Vancouver in front of a green screen. We shot 3 nights, all the outdoor scenes with Ben Stiller and Amy Adams. So it was just the 2 of them and the 6 of us.
Oh, that's cool.
So there was a scene where we were running out of the Smithsonian Castle. There was a scene outside of the Air and Space Museum. And then the final scene that was really crazy was the one where we're chasing them in front of the Lincoln Memorial. And there must have been probably 2,000 tourists who somehow got wind of the fact that this was being filmed there. And they all showed up in buses, and they were boy. So it was interesting, people following me into the men's room and trying to take pictures of me.
You're a star, baby.
Crazy for a moment. But it was a great experience. It was just a fun project.
Sounds like it.
It was physically demanding. I remember that the first night we had the scene where we came running out of the Smithsonian Castle, and it was nighttime. There were these steps, and we were in full gear, and there was this light shining towards us, and the guy in front of me almost tripped. So I don't know how many takes of that we did, but it was. And then they gave us water, and we had to drink it through a straw because we couldn't take any of the helmets off. Mm. So it was great, and just being there with just Ben Stiller and Amy Adams was kind of cool.
For sure.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that sounds like an incredible experience. Would you say that that's one of your favorites that you've done?
Yeah, I mean that's sort of one of my highlights. We didn't get credit for it, so I have to list it as an uncredited experience. Mm. The other thing where I lucked out is I was hired as a featured background for season 1 of House of Cards. Mm. And we then ended up getting small dialogue lines in a scene that we filmed at the War Memorial in Baltimore. And that was kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure. What's
So two things stand out.
what's your personal favorite role you've ever done? Like those definitely seem like some of the
questions.
some of like the higher ones. Or segueing the quick
You're
fire
taking away
question.
the quick fire questions.
Oh my gosh,
All
I'm
right,
stealing
back it
Seth's.
up,
I'm
back it up.
stealing Seth's thunder. Let's reel it back real quick. Seth.
All right, thank you. So, Reiner, we actually do a little thing here with all our actors, just some quick fire questions. This first one's actually a doozy and hard for everybody to answer. So we'll go top 3 if you can't think of one. But just easy answers, just a couple word answers. So, favorite movie?
Black Panther.
Yeah? Nice.
That's the first one. There's so many. That's the first one that comes to mind right now.
That's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah. It's timely right now. That's
R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah, that sucks, man.
So young.
I know.
43. How much more could that man have done?
I know. While he was suffering from cancer, he was in all those children's hospitals, helping all the kids. I mean, he was doing a lot of charity work. Yeah.
Paragon of a person, for sure.
He was awesome.
Yeah.
Great answer.
Good choice. All right. Man, that's a hard act to follow.
Right.
That was a great answer. All right. Favorite actor or actress, whatever. Either way.
Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah Winfrey. Wow. All right. Very nice. Very nice.
I was drawing a blank here for a moment, but she doesn't do much. But when she does something, she always blows me away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ever since The Color Purple.
Kind of something that's hidden in the back pocket whenever she kind of is feeling like getting out there in front of the camera or something like that. When it's not the show.
Yeah. All right. Our favorite role you've ever played?
The favorite, there were actually multiple roles.
That's a great question.
I know, right? That's a good question.
A production of Red Herring. And in that, one of the roles I played was this Russian sea captain whose wife was being held by the Soviets in this camp, and he had an affair with this American woman. And it was a kind of a film noir set on stage thing. It was a really cool production at the Met. And I think that character is probably my all-time favorite character.
All right, very cool, very cool. All right, is there a bucket list character that you have, just a character that you would love to play at some point that you never got to play before?
I think now that I'm getting older, I think King Lear would be one that I would love to tackle at some point.
That's a really
I'd go
choice.
see that.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, you'd be great. And last quick fire question, Law Dog.
Is there a voice in your mind that's the most iconic, and why? Is it roles they've played or roles they've played? Is it just how they present themselves, cadence? It doesn't even have to be a fictional character, or it doesn't have to be an actor, I should say. It could be somebody from history or something like that.
Probably James Earl Jones in Star Wars.
Yeah. What is that? What is that?
I think
4?
everybody.
4 is that? I mean, it's definitely such a go-to for sure. I mean, probably the most iconic voice ever for sure.
And since we never see him, and I think that's the other reason that it's so important is we see the mask and then just that really deep voice that really makes that character alive. So
has he ever gotten in? I'm sure he has, but is there any films that either of you two gents know about that he's actually in front of the camera and not either performing voiceover or performing the voice?
Telephone book commercials. That's the last thing where I actually remember seeing James Earl Jones in front of it was in the 90s, I think.
I can't
Conan
think of
the Barbarian.
anything.
He was the bad guy in Conan.
Oh.
Or wait, was that the second one? Was it the Destroyer?
It was in Conan.
It was one of the Conans.
Yeah.
And then
I need to get up to this.
He was also in Jesus of Nazareth, the miniseries. He played one of the 3 wise men with Donald Pleasance. How awesome of a 3 wise men can you get? Oh my
gosh.
James Earl Jones and Donald Pleasance. I don't know who the third guy was, but who cares?
But it's interesting.
It was great.
Jones, as a kid, had a really bad stutter and had to overcome that. So it's,
Right.
I think it's another one of those great success stories where someone who really struggled as a young person overcame all the odds to move on to that kind of a career. So
Right.
I think that's pretty amazing.
Dude, we forgot The Sandlot. Isn't it The Sandlot? He's the guy with the isn't it The Sandlot? He's at the end.
Is he?
He's the blind guy in the house.
He might be.
Am I thinking of a different movie?
I'd believe you if you told me.
Am I
But
thinking of a different baseball? It's a baseball kids movie, but
The Sandlot has that at the end when the dog chases him back and
Yes.
he finds him and it's like,
It's him.
oh, everything's cool.
Yeah, it's him. Yeah.
Wow. How about that?
Yeah.
I did not know that, but it's been a minute since I've seen that film.
Great movie.
Yeah, fantastic film. But anyway, Reiner, we're gonna wrap this up here. Thank you so much for being here virtually, being here with us, being here through the laptop. We sincerely appreciate your time and all of your efforts towards this so far, and for your kind words towards this. For me at least, who's been with this material for 3 years, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, it's always really reassuring to hear very just candid answers about stuff like this. So thank you personally.
Absolutely.
For that.
Being a creative person, when you've worked on something for a long time, it's always nice and refreshing to hear somebody say something positive about it.
It is, yes.
So it's a way of reassuring us.
Truly is. We definitely crave that because you can only do so much as an individual to go, yeah, it's good. When it's been 3 years later. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thank you all so much for listening and or watching, whichever you prefer. You know the drill. Follow R-Cade Productions on all social medias, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, the whole shebang. We there. You should come join us. And always, if you can, if you're willing, Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign is still open. That's Smothered, an R-Cade production, campaign 3. We are accepting any and all donations. It can be as much or as little as possible, and that will immediately get you credit on the piece, but also have your voice featured in it, so you would be a part of it. So please, we sincerely appreciate your time, your consideration, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Yes.
Until then, take care.
See ya.